If you're new to training, this probably has happened to you before. You start going to the gym and realizing you actually don't know how to do the movements you're trying to do. So instead of making the same mistakes over and over again, I'm gonna help you piece together a training program that'll allow you to be successful in the gym. So to do so, I'm gonna give you some basic tips and tricks with your back day. This is Building the Basics, a multiple part mini-series where I take you through the basics of health and fitness. Through my own personal experience and with my career, I've been fortunate enough to teach myself and teach others these same things, and I want to provide them to you. The amount of times I personally went to the gym doing the wrong things, getting hurt, taking a break, coming back, getting hurt, and going through this never-ending cycle was, it was just ridiculous. And I really don't want you to make that same mistake. So while we take this on, make sure you take notes, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, because there's gonna be a lot of valuable information here. The first exercise we need to cover is the barbell bent row. This is the Swiss Army knife of back movements. The barbell bent row, when done correctly, can be a really good tool. When you look at the back musculature, there are three main planes that we have to work through. One being the sagittal plane. This is going to be forwards and backwards. Think of movements like the barbell bent row. Two, the frontal plane, which is going to be movements like the lat pull down or a pull up. And three is going to be the transverse plane, or think of this as rotational or twisting movements. Now, having a base understanding of planes of movement for the back, you should have one or two of each of these in any given program. But let's start with the barbell bent row. There are a few ways to do this movement correct. There are also a ton of ways to do the movement wrong. First off, we're going to cover the bad. When you're looking at a barbell bent row, you can tell in this video that I am just a little too high up. I'm targeting the upper traps. It looks more of like a shrug motion with some little dinosaur arms. This is not a good example of the movement, which moves us into the next thing you'll notice in the video. This is going to be the rounding of my spine. When we do anything that is going to be spine loaded, or we have to have some kind of bracing through the erectors, rounding the spine too aggressively can cause back pain. And the next common thing that you'll find shown in this video is the T-Rex arms. You'll notice as I'm doing this, there's a lot of forearm to bicep movement, and there's not a lot of rowing going on. This is extremely common when you see people do a barbell bent row, which then brings us into fixes. So I'm gonna help you cue this movement up. To cue up a barbell bent row, what I'd like you to do is take the barbell at about shoulder width apart. After you take the barbell and move away from the rack, I want you to bring the shoulders back, tuck the chin, and hinge. If the hinge feels difficult, before even picking up the weight, what I'd recommend doing is imagine that you're bending down to pick up a piece of garbage off the floor. After you pick up said garbage from the floor, what I want you to do is just straighten your spine. You'll notice that the weight is towards the front of your foot, your spine is nice and neutral, and you're maintaining this plane where we can drive through and execute on a mid-trap barbell bent row. After visualizing this, setting up the movement, and having yourself in the correct position, this will almost feel like an RDL, except the weight will be farther in front of you. And then from there, all I want you to do is imagine driving the elbows out and around, squeezing through the mid traps. People will commonly ask, where does the bar need to touch? Does it need to touch upper chest, lower chest, the stomach? And my recommendation is to drive back at about a 45 or to whatever degree is comfortable. When you come back to the contracted position of the movement, go ahead and hold this for about 1 second count and come down on the eccentric with 1 to 2 seconds. Moving slower on the eccentric will reduce your risk of injury and allow you to maintain more time under tension. One of the biggest takeaways I want you to have with this movement is the neutrality of my spine. It's staying rigid. I'm expanding the air in my stomach and contracting it, so I'm bracing the core, and I'm maintaining this position through the entirety of all my reps. For the barbell bent row, or that wide grip row variation, you can recreate this with cables, dumbbells, machines, whatever it may be, and the rules will always still apply. When you're doing the movement, feel free to come to a full contraction of the scapula, and as you come forward, make sure you add a little nice stretch. And this leads us into our next movement. This is the lat-biased single arm row. Anytime that you want to target the lats, one of the most important factors is going to be having that arm nice and close to the side of the body. When you have that arm nice and close to the side of the body, what I recommend doing is driving the elbow down towards the hip. This is going to prevent you from pinching the scapula and load more tension to the lats. As you can see in the beginning of this video, the positioning and the elbow drive that I'm going through creates that same kind of dinosaur arm that you're noticing. This is one of the most common issues that you see. Remember that when doing a lat bias row, the elbow should be driving towards the hip. And if you can tell in that clip, there is not a lot of elbow to hip drive going on. This leads us to one of the second issues that you often run into when seeing someone do a lat bias row. One of the next mistakes that commonly happen is when you're going through the reps, you have a lot of movement between your shoulder and your spine. Most people think that by doing this almost rocking motion that you're stretching the lats further and allowing to contract more. But in turn, this is actually reducing the range of motion you're working through. Make sure to keep the spine nice and rigid, shoulders square to the ground, and if anything, go ahead and move towards that working arm so we can actually lengthen the lats on that side. With the lats insertion, that rotation of the spine isn't going to change anything too drastically, so maintain a nice rigid shoulder positioning and still again focus on that elbow to hip drive. And this leads us to how I would recommend setting up the movement. So you'll notice that I kick the bench up one notch. It's a little more comfortable on my knee. In addition, I can stay parallel to the floor. While maintaining that parallel position on setup, I like to have the pit of my elbow facing away or up from me. With that forward positioning of the pit of the elbow, it allows me to now focus on driving my elbow to hip in a much more natural plane. You'll notice as I drive the reps, I'm driving elbow to hip to maintain tension through the lats. If I were to adjust this movement and make it a more rear delt or a more mid-trap bias movement, all I'd have to do is change the angle and the intent of the movement. Don't forget, we want that same neutral spine, and if we are using dumbbells, gravity is going to be the main factor in how the range of motion looks. So if you want the movement to look as clean as possible and target the lats or the upper back as much as possible, you need to be close to parallel to the ground. The bench will allow you to maintain that positioning through the majority of your sets, making it a more comfortable movement, allowing you to load tension a little bit further. Before we take a look at our lat pull downs, it's important to note that when you are weight training, we want to utilize as little momentum as possible. If you're using momentum through your reps, you're not sustaining time under tension, and time under significant tension is where a lot of growth is going to happen. So if you're swinging through your weights, like you'll see here in a minute, you'll notice there's not a lot of tension loaded. There are a few common issues you run into with the lat pull down. The basics of the lat pull down is driving elbow down towards hip, keeping the chest elevated. And you'll notice in these clips that I'm not really doing a good job at this. One, I start by using momentum. I'm really swinging the weights, just trying to move the reps however I can. Maybe the weight's a little too heavy for me, who knows? First obvious thing you'll see is that momentum is being used through majority of the rep range. Again, to maintain tension, I want to prevent myself from swinging too much through my reps. And the next thing, you'll notice that as I come down, I'll hit the full range of motion that I need to for the back, but then I'll start to drive my palm down towards the floor ever so slightly. This is an unnecessary part of the movement that is commonly done because we think we can get a little more out of the rep by pushing the bar down further. Our goal through any training block is to align the muscle as straight as possible, contract and lengthen that muscle as consistently as possible with tension. So if we are pushing down with the hand, we are no longer loading tension through the back, we're just loading tension through the arms, through the triceps, and trying to push the weight further down. So let's talk about the right way to do this movement. For the lat pull down, what I want you to do is hinge back ever so slightly with hands around shoulder width apart. There are other variations of the movement that you can get into, but as of right now, I want you to set it up as basic as possible. Hands shoulder width apart, hinge back ever so slightly, and then elevate the chest just a little bit. As you begin your reps from that stretch position, what I want you to focus on is driving your elbows down towards your hips. And when the scapula rotates and we can no longer drive elbow to hip, that is the full contraction of the movement. Without using momentum and swinging the weight, I want you to follow this rep over rep. Again, following this with 1 to 2 seconds of eccentric time to reduce your risk of injury. Though these 3 back movements are extremely simple, they are going to be great tools for you to understand how to pull through each plane. Cueing, the setup, everything is pretty consistent regardless of the tool that you use. 1, I want you to focus on not using momentum. 2, align the musculature as straight as possible. 3, if it is a spine-loaded movement, make sure the spine is nice and neutral. We aren't arching too aggressively. We aren't rounding too aggressively. And number 4, a great pointer to all of this is to make sure you're not using your ego to lift the weights. It doesn't matter how much weight you're going to move. It's cool to see people who are lifting a ton of weight, and maybe you're just not in that position with where you're at in your fitness journey. And regardless, there's always bigger fish in the pond. So pick a weight that is going to be comparable for you, that your risk of injury is low, and you can execute at a high level. As you start training and getting into your fitness journey, you want to make this all as simple as possible. The complexity of the training can set in place in the future when you are in a position where you actually need it. But the glory of starting a fitness journey and having not gone to the gym, or maybe you haven't gone for a long time, is that you can basically walk in and look at a dumbbell and you'll put some muscle on. When that no longer happens, you want to get into more advanced techniques and better tools to help you continue to progress. So if you are building the basics and you are creating a baseline structure for you to follow, you want to make it straightforward. You want to make it simple. You want to make it really attainable and something you can do every single week. If it's too complex and it's too heavy and your risk of injury is high and you keep getting hurt, you're not going to do it anyway. So there's no point. I hope these tips help. I hope this keeps you in the game. I hope this allows you to see progress with your back movements. And again, if you are more advanced than this, that's fantastic. There are videos that will come in the future that we are going to get into specifics of training past the basics. But as of right now, I really want you to nail these concepts. If you like this video and you found it helpful, please like and subscribe and follow for more. I post every Monday, all with the goal of helping you get in the best shape of your life. Okay, bye.